if you think about it, this is the best season of the decade. Hello, my name is Alex, that's F1 Stuff, and welcome to a pre-race review for round number 16 for the Sakhir Grand Prix around the Oval? The Bahrain Oval? What actually is this track called? Is it the Sakhir Oval? The Bahrain Oval? Because it can't be the Bahrain International Circuit as we were there just last week. I don't know if this has a new name. But anyways, like I said in the very beginning of this little bit, so far 2020 is the best season of the decade simply because it is the first season of the decade. But regardless of that, even in the past 10 years dating back to 2011, it's been a very, very solid year. Personally, I think I would put it probably third behind 2010 and 2012, and then you have seasons like 2018 and 2017 where at least Mercedes were being challenged. I'm only including this one so highly because there's been so much. I know we didn't have a title fight, which is why it's not up with 2010, 2012, but we've had everything else that makes a great season. And there are still just 2 races left. So let's take a look at where we left off from last weekend. In the Drivers' Championship, Lewis Hamilton won his 5th race in a row to take a 131-point lead over Valtteri Bottas, who is slowly threatened by Max Verstappen. Daniel Ricciardo moves to P4 in the Drivers' Championship, just 2 points ahead of Sergio Perez and 4 points ahead of Charles Leclerc, with Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon separated by just 1 point. And then in the Constructors, it is much the same. Mercedes leaps and bounds above Red Bull, who are pulling away from that midfield, who is so close, with McLaren taking a 17-point lead from Racing Point, with Renault just behind them, and Ferrari so close behind them as well. And then just looking at the weather ahead of this weekend's Grand Prix, 27 degrees on the Friday throughout most of the day, and then 26 degrees, slightly cooler and a bit more cloudy on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday, there is a much higher percentage chance of rain. Now, I will just say I am recording this on a Tuesday. Normally I do this on a Wednesday evening, simply because I'm busy all day tomorrow with uni stuff. But anyway, yes, recording this on a Tuesday, so it is likely that these forecasts are going to change as it's a Tuesday. But yeah, it would be very, very interesting if it rains. I know there was a little bit, just a squidge, over the course of the Bahrain weekend. Obviously not when any of the cars were going around, but there was a small little bit, so possibly. And the tyres for this weekend's Grand Prix are the same as they were just last weekend, C2, C3 and C4. And with the little background information all done and dusted, we will jump straight on in to the reviews, and we begin with the best news possible, that Grosjean is doing well. He is recovering nicely in hospital. I believe he's still overnight at the moment. I'm not sure how much longer he's going to be staying in hospital with his minor burns, etc. Luckily, no broken bones, no fractures, which is honestly astounding. A peak G-force of 53 in the incident, I believe 137 miles an hour or something like that. And to come out with no fractures, no broken bones, miracle. Now, it'll be interesting to see if they have replaced their temporary concrete barriers that they put up for the Bahrain Grand Prix with Armco again. I'm not 100% sure if they will, as it's only been a few days, so they're not going to have enough time to ship in a load of safer barriers or some Tech Pro barriers or anything like that. They could have some spare on hand around different parts of the track, which I suppose they could use, but I'd imagine they would just keep the concrete there as it was, or just make it a bit more of a permanent fixture rather than the temporary one that they had anyway. However, shortly after Grosjean was admitted to hospital, it was announced that he would not be racing in the Sakhir Grand Prix, which rose the question, who is going to replace him? And it is Pietro Fittipaldi, Haas's reserve driver, along with Louis Delatraz, who is currently racing in F2 at the moment. But Pietro Fittipaldi is the one with the super license, I believe, or the one with enough experience in these sorts of cars. I don't actually think either of them have driven... Has he driven an F1 car? Ooh, good question. He may have done a test in like 2018 or 2019 in a previous year's car. I'm not 100% sure on that. But definitely awesome to see the Fittipaldi name back in F1. I think the first time since Christian Fittipaldi in the early 2000s, the son of... not Emerson, Emerson's brother, Wilson, I think. Because Emerson and Wilson then raced at the same time when Emerson was winning his championships. Then I believe it was Wilson's son Christian who came in, and then we have Pietro Fittipaldi coming in this year. However, this is not the end of the driver news and the driver changes. Lewis Hamilton has contracted COVID-19 and he will not be partaking in the Sakhir Grand Prix. That honestly was the massive news, which has slightly overshadowed everything as the seat of a lifetime is up for grabs. You don't have a Lewis Hamilton to contend with, and you are going into the fastest F1 car ever. And as of recording this video at 10 minutes past 4, there is still no announcement as to who that replacement driver is going to be. It's looking likely it's going to be Stoffel van Dorn, although he is currently in Valencia doing Formula E testing for Mercedes, the Formula E team. But it could be George Russell, but then you've got the problem of crossing bubbles, and then you've got to find a replacement for Williams. You could bring Hülkenberg in, you could put Gutierrez in, but Gutierrez doesn't have a super license. So I feel like it will be Stoffel van Dorn, just because that's the most convenient option. I would love to see George Russell in the car, but I just think it's too much of a COVID-19 safety risk and against all of the protocols that they've so strongly put in place and enforced throughout this year to put him in that car. But my god, it would be so cool to see him in the Mercedes. Now, I have seen lots and lots and lots of comments about this all over the weekend saying, how did Lewis Hamilton actually race over the weekend if he had it? Because surely he'd had it for a long time if he contracted it before the Grand Prix. He took 3 individual tests over the Grand Prix weekend, all testing negative. And then on the Monday after the Grand Prix, that was when he was starting to get the symptoms, and that was when he returned a positive test. So to all of those people that were saying, surely he's put all of his team at risk, it's possible because you can be asymptomatic and still carrying it and still passing it on. But if you've taken 3 tests over like the Grand Prix weekend and they all test negative, yeah, exactly. You're not gonna know. You're not gonna take all those precautions because you believe that you're negative, even though you are asymptomatic. It's a bit of a confusing one, and it is such a shame that loads of people are saying all of this. That Mercedes should withdraw. All the team are at risk. Everyone that he was on the podium with is at risk. It was just such a shame seeing all of those types of comments. But I suppose, unfortunately, they're always going to be there and they're never going to disappear. However, this does provide an amazing opportunity for Valtteri Bottas to put an enormous spring into his step into next year and show that he can actually dominate a weekend. You don't have Lewis Hamilton to contend with, so he should easily get pole position this weekend, and then he should easily lead from there. But saying that, he did have a shit start last week, so that could hamper him, and once Verstappen gets in front, I feel Verstappen can definitely lead from there. But this, honestly, Bottas, if he doesn't win, it's going to start putting question marks over him, and especially if the substitute actually does better or is level with him, that's going to put massive question marks over Bottas's performance. And this also puts a massive spring in the step of Red Bull as well. They've just had a double podium, and they are probably going to get a double podium again. Although it's a more power-hungry track, this one. It's just an oval. Yeah, a bit more power-hungry, so they may struggle because there's no longer the higher downforce corners and the high-speed stuff to go through, but we shall see. I still feel like Max Verstappen could actually be a favourite over Valtteri Bottas, unless we'll have to wait and see what practice holds, but at the moment, I'm putting my money on Max Verstappen and definitely another Albon podium. Then to McLaren, they had an absolutely storming race just 1 week ago, 4th and 5th, their 3rd highest points haul of the season so far. But again, it's now, even though the track is the same, 3/4 of it, 2/3 of it is the same, it's more power dependent throughout this lap, so it completely changes whose cars it suits. And I don't feel it's going to suit McLaren as nicely, but I still feel they can easily get in the top 10, both cars in the top 10 if there are 0 issues. Alfa Tauri is up next, and again, a team that I think is actually going to struggle a little bit more than they did just 1 week ago, simply because the track has changed its characteristics. But never discount Pierre Gasly. He was super in qualifying, and then managing to just improve upon that in the race as well. Never ever discount Pierre Gasly for an outstanding performance. I reckon he will get into Q3 again. I don't think Danny Kvyat will. It's possible, but I don't think he will. And then in the race, I feel definitely another top 8 finish is possible for Pierre Gasly. And unfortunately for Kvyat, unless something miraculous happens, I don't feel he's going to score any points. However, Renault, I now think Renault are the team to beat this weekend. As we have seen, they like power-hungry tracks. They were sort of decent-ish in both Austrias. They were definitely decent in Belgium and Monza in power-hungry tracks. So I think around this oval, they are 100% going to be the midfield team to beat, which is going to be awesome for the championship, as they got to claw back some of those points to McLaren, which they lost due to their poor team order decisions, or their late team order decisions, which cost them points over McLaren, allowing them to creep slightly further away. So 100% I feel Renault are going to be the team to beat and should easily get both cars into Q3, and there is a cheeky podium up for grabs, I believe, for Renault. And Ferrari, now they actually struggled a little bit more than I was expecting in Bahrain. I didn't think they were going to struggle that bad and sort of go backwards as much as they did. Now Vettel had his own problems getting caught up in the Kvyat-Stroll incident, so he possibly had damage from that, which is understandable as to why he would struggle, but Leclerc, I wasn't expecting him to struggle that badly. And unfortunately, simply because of the characteristics like I've mentioned a lot before in this episode, I feel Ferrari are once again going to struggle again. I said again too many times. And then Williams is up next. Now, Williams could possibly capitalise on this, as again, the Ferrari-powered cars are slightly coming down, and you no longer have a definite position up there in Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, that strong Mercedes car is definitely going to be within the points, but something could happen. The inexperiencedness of the substitute, whether it's Van Dorn or not, could cause a little issue. There could be some more incidents throughout the race. I feel this is going to provide an awesome opportunity for Williams to score some points. Unless, of course, George Russell does get sucked out of the seat and then put into the Mercedes, then I have God knows who they're going to fill in that second Williams seat. I don't even... Nissany, maybe? Does he have enough super license points? I don't think so. Unless he's done 300... Ooh, no, because the FIA changed the rules, didn't they? You can now do 300 kilometers in F1 machinery, and then you're able to be a super substitute for an F1 weekend. So I think Roy Nissany, because he's done 2 practice sessions, hasn't he, this year. So I think he may have done 300 kilometers. I'll have to triple check. Then penultimately we have Alfa Romeo, and I feel along with Haas they are going to be the bottom 2 teams. Giovinazzi though has 100% improved, and my tune on him has slightly changed, which is awesome. I like changing my tune on drivers, as 100% in the first 2 quarters of this season he was looking nowhere, not looking like he'd improved at all, whereas now he's actually consistently above Raikkonen and actually doing quite well in the races. And definitely I think Q2 potential is on the cards, but it is going to be a struggle. Then to Racing Point, and now they must capitalise on this weekend and claw back those 17 points now to McLaren. Obviously it wasn't their fault that the engine blew up and kaputted, and they were comfortably in that podium position, and obviously it wasn't Lance Stroll's fault that he ended up upside down, so it was an absolutely miserable race, but they must have both cars in the top 10 and they must outscore McLaren and Renault. But I do think it is going to be a bit of a challenge, as Renault are 100% going to be a contender, McLaren are definitely going to be up there, and then of course you can have upsets, but I feel it's going to be Sergio Perez that can actually drive home a decent result. Obviously not discounting Lance Stroll, but I just don't think he has that edge that Sergio Perez has. He was comfortably running in P3, but we know Lance Stroll can do well because he was running at the front in Turkey for a while. Yeah, you can see why this year is so bloody good. There's so many teams, they're so equal in the midfield, and you just don't know who's going to come out on top. But I do feel the Racing Point are going to be 100% in that fight, and they must capitalise this weekend. And there we go, that is the end of my pre-race review for what we can expect for the Sakhir Grand Prix. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then.